Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's AFA Care Connection webinar. My name is Susan Shipman, she, her, and I am a social worker here at the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. The topic for today is Through the Years, an Historical Lens on Stigma and Discrimination Among LGBTQ plus Older Adults. But first, before we get started, a couple of housekeeping issues. All the lines are muted, but we encourage any questions. So please feel free to use the question box we will have a brief Q&A if there is time at the end of today's webinar. Any questions you may have for AFA, please feel free to call our helpline, and I'll include that number in the wrap-up email along with your certificate of attendance. Additionally, Jennifer is going to provide a copy of her presentation, and I'll include that and the website and contact information in the wrap-up email as well. All that said, let's get started. Our guest speaker today, Jennifer Reeder, she, her, LCSW SIFI, is the Senior Director of Education and Social Services for the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, located in New York City. This includes overseeing AFA's national toll-free helpline, staffed by licensed social workers and community class programs, all instructed by various therapists and educators. Jennifer graduated from Temple University in 2011 with a master's in social work and entered the not-for-profit sector, providing in-home therapy to families in the Philadelphia area for over 9 years. She is proud to now be supporting individuals and families affected by Alzheimer's and disease-related dementias while providing clinical guidance to the licensed social workers of AFA. And now I'll turn the talk over to Jennifer Reeder. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you all so much for choosing to be here today with me. This presentation, as a person who is a part of the LGBTQ community, this presentation is very near and dear to my heart. And so I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart that you are here today with me. And we here at AFA, we are so excited and honored to provide this learning session to you all as a two-part series. So today, I'm going to be sharing some really important information about historical moments and figures in the LGBTQ community to help you all really to be able to gain a deeper understanding of how past experiences of bias and resilience continue to shape the well-being, relationships, and identities of LGBTQ plus older adults today. So this is all in preparation of LGBTQ plus History Month, which is October. And then also for our second session, which is titled Healing with Pride, Designing Care That Sees, Affirms, and Restores. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on, creating healthcare and dementia care approaches that honor the unique histories and identities of LGBTQ plus older adults. So I really hope that you'll be joining us all next month as well, which is on October 9th, same time, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'll just get started by sharing a bit of information with you all. So for those of you who don't know, there are 64 countries, at least 64 countries, that have laws criminalizing homosexuality. There are 6 countries that still enforce the death penalty. Other countries enforce forced psychiatric treatment, forced labor, prison sentences, and fines. So recent data suggests that social acceptance of LGBTQ people in the United States has plateaued and may even be reversing. And I believe that this comes from a lack of understanding about the community. Where there is ignorance, there is fear. And so yet again, I just really want to thank you all for being here today, educating yourselves, maybe even contributing your own knowledge, your own experience to help be able to eliminate ignorance and create a society that everyone receives equal rights and supports. Yes, we have a very, very long way to go. And when I was mentioning about sharing your own experience, your own knowledge, So at the end of the presentation, just as Susan said, there's going to be opportunity for you all to be able to ask questions. And I just want this, what I'm trying to do is really be able to create a safe space so that people feel that they can share their own experiences, either as being a person who is LGBTQ, or maybe even loving a person or supporting a person who is LGBTQ, because this is all about learning from one another. And so I want to show you all what the objectives for the presentation is going to be. So at the end of this presentation, what we're hoping is that you'll be able to understand important historical events and social changes that shape the lives of LGBTQ plus older adults, recognize how past experiences influence who LGBTQ plus older adults are today and how they connect with their communities. And then also appreciate the resilience and the strength LGBTQ older adults have shown in the face of challenges. And then overall, I'd say like a major goal is really to be able to help you all understand why the LGBTQ plus older population are unique. I've received this question so many times. So what is the difference? What's the difference between being an older adult and an LGBTQ plus older adult? Well, I hope that this presentation is going to help to answer that, because once we have that answer, we can then understand why our approaches in healthcare, dementia care really need to be unique and really tailored to the individual and their historical context. So before I go any further, I just want to share a few important terms and concepts so that you can keep it in mind as we move forward. So why don't we just start with the acronym LGBTQIA+. So this acronym, it brings together many different gender and sexual identities that often face marginalization across society. So this stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, and the plus holds space for the expanding and new understanding of different parts of the very diverse gender and sexual identities. So the acronym, it's identified with the community, trying to be more inclusive with the understanding that the terms and identities related to this community are not monolithic. And so now some about identity culture. So it's important to know terminology because the words we use matter. While speaking with the people we are caring for, we want to use the terms that are comfortable with them. Knowing the right words to use, appropriate pronouns, and proper terminology can make a difference. Because in order to provide proper care, proper support, it needs to be inclusive. So cisgender. Cisgender is a person whose gender identity and assigned sex at birth correspond. Binary is the idea that there are only two genders, male and female, and that a person must fit strictly into one or the other category. Non-binary is a person who does not identify exclusively as a man or a woman, masculine or feminine. They may identify as a mix of genders or no gender at all. And then gender nonconforming. So this is a gender expression that differs from a given society's norms for males and females. And then I also wanted to share with you intersectionality. So intersectionality has its own slide. It can be, there are semesters all about intersectionality. So, but I just want to give you a little bit of information as to why it's important to understand this concept. So it's a term coined by Black feminist and legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw to describe how individuals with multiple marginalized identities can experience multiple and unique forms of discrimination that cannot be conceptualized separately. So let's think about a woman named Margaret. So Margaret is a woman. She is an older adult. She is a Black American. She is a lesbian, and she's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Now, identities are shaped and influenced by the interconnection of all of these characteristics. She could experience discrimination from all of these identities. So sexism, racism, ageism, LGBTQ plus hatred, as well as ableism or disableism. So we would be doing Margaret a serious disservice if we only acknowledged her experience of discrimination and how this has affected her by looking at only one of these identities. Human lives cannot be explained by single categories. So we must recognize that LGBTQ plus individuals with dementia may be triple, quadruple marginalized in care settings, healthcare settings, due to the intersection of their age, cognitive status, their race, and sexual identity. So, aside from combating discrimination in healthcare, we can utilize the concept of intersectionality to help better understand the lived experience of the person with dementia and why each person's experience of dementia is so varied. So now, since I've been able to share some important terms and concepts that I want you to keep in mind, I now want to pose a question to you all. And I want you all to consider this question. I'm going to be sharing some answers to the question, but when we get to the Q&A session at the end of the presentation, if you want to share your answers to this question, I would love to hear them. So here it is. Why is it important to understand the historical context of a person and their community? So I want you to think about your own answers to this question. So here are some answers, right? So historical context helps us move from judgment to understanding, from assumption to insight. So it provides insight into their experiences and actions, right? So studying history, stories, perspectives allows us to better understand why individuals and groups made the choices they did. It sheds light on the challenges they faced, the values that guided them, and the circumstances that influenced their actions. It promotes empathy and reduces bias. So learning about different people's struggles and achievements helps us see the world through their eyes. This can break down stereotypes, challenge assumptions, and encourage more compassionate, inclusive ways of thinking. It reveals patterns and root causes. Looking at events over time highlights recurring themes such as cycles of conflict, innovation, or social change. By identifying underlying causes, we can better understand present day issues and potentially avoid repeating past mistakes. It enriches interpretations of culture, literature, art. Context deepens our appreciation of creative works by connecting them to the historical moments, social movements, or personal experiences that shape them. This allows us to uncover deeper meaning and significance in what we read, see, and hear. And as we know, there's so much art and culture within the LGBTQ community. And then it strengthens civic awareness and responsibility. So understanding the struggles and achievements of the past fosters a greater sense of responsibility in the present. It equips individuals to engage thoughtfully in civic life, make informed decisions, and contribute to building a more just and equitable society. And I just want to share this quote with you from James Baldwin. I absolutely love this quote. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. So this is why, and I think it's a perfect intro to our next part about significant historical events and people. So these are the historical moments that I'm going to be touching on. And I just want to preface very quickly that there are so many more historical moments and historical figures in the LGBTQ community. But these are just really examples of why it is so important for us to understand the historical context, the biases, and the resilience of an individual and their community. So I first off want to start with some historical context into Black American LGBTQ history. And the reasoning for that is that Black American LGBTQ history has been an integral part of American history, but has unfortunately been largely overlooked and somewhat attempted to be erased, much like a lot of Black American history. But Black American queer history is deeply interwoven with American history, revealing critical insights into the nation's progress in civil rights, social justice, and cultural evolution. Intersectional changes related to both race and sexual orientation, Black LGBTQ plus Americans have persistently fought for visibility, acceptance, and equality, contributing a legacy that has strengthened America's commitment to inclusion and diversity. Black queer history includes significant contributions to American arts and culture, from the Harlem Renaissance to contemporary music and fashion. So the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s was driven by several queer Black artists, including poets like Langston Hughes and novelists like Richard Bruce Nugent, whose works celebrated Black identity while also subtly addressing queer themes, blending the experiences of race and sexuality into a singular expressive voice. So the contributions of Black queer Americans to political activism are inseparable from American history. These activists confronted police harassment, social prejudices, laying the groundwork for the LGBTQ plus rights movement in the United States. William Dorsey Swann, who you see here on the right, was the first documented, I'll say documented, drag queen. Born into slavery in Maryland just before the Civil War, the Emancipation Day Parade was his inspiration. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison for keeping a disorderly house or a brothel. So he was also the earliest documented American activist to take steps to defend the queer community. The balls that he organized and hosted continued to expand to other cities. So 21st century ballroom culture have maintained the same basic culture as Swann's 19th century community. So when we think about Pose or RuPaul's Drag Race, all of this comes from the ballroom culture that Swann created. Frances Thompson was a formerly enslaved Black transgender woman who testified before Congress about being severely beaten during the Memphis race riots of 1866. And it was helped to shape the course of Reconstruction and galvanize support for the 14th Amendment, which provided Black Americans with citizenship rights and promise of equal protection. And just thinking about how incredibly terrifying it must have been to be a transgender woman during that time. And I've heard so many transgender people say, I don't like being told that I am brave because all I am being is myself. And I think that is so important to understand and really help resonate with yourselves, and that it's not about making a choice to be a transgender person. This is who the person is. And then thinking about James Baldwin too. So James Baldwin was born in 1924 in Harlem. And he became one of the first Black authors to write openly about homosexuality, challenging societal norms, and sparking conversations about the intersection of race and queer identity. There is so much more to share about Black American queer history, which we don't have time today, but I just hope that I'm inspiring you right now to take your own time to learn more about Black American queer history. But I want to share another James Baldwin quote with you all before I continue on, and I love this one as well. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. And I think that resonates, with me, and I would say with our society today. So now get into Stonewall and Pride for the 1960s. And this is, Pride Month is geared towards anyone who feels like their sexual identity falls outside of the mainstream. So how it started was in June 28th, 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village here in New York City. And this isn't the first time they raided the bar. They were raiding it pretty much every night. Police started hauling patrons out. What they would typically do, they would haul the patrons out, they would take them to jail, and many times they would release the individuals the next day, but not before they would humiliate and harass the people. And this, would continue on the next night. So tensions quickly escalated as patrons resisted arrest, and growing crowds of bystanders started throwing bottles and coins at officers. So New York gay community, they were fed up after years of harassment by authorities. And neighborhood riots went on for 3 days. And this uprising was a catalyst for an emerging gay rights movement as organizations such as the Gay Liberation Front and Gay Activist Alliance were formed, modeled after the civil rights movement and women's rights movement. Members of the groups held protests, met with political leaders, and interrupted public meetings to hold those leaders accountable. The first Pride Month was 1 year later to commemorate the Stonewall Uprising. And in 2016, the Stonewall Inn was designated a national monument. And those who are unaware of how the rainbow flag came about, so Harvey Milk, who was San Francisco city supervisor, he was one of the first openly gay elected officials in the United States, appointed artist and designer Gilbert Baker to make the flag for the city's upcoming Pride celebrations, and this was in 1978. So he gave a nod to the stripes of the American flag, but drew inspiration from the rainbow to reflect the many groups within the gay community. So Pride events welcome allies. It's an opportunity to show support, observe, listen, be educated. So I encourage everyone to participate in Pride celebrations, but let's remember there are 11 other months in the year to show your support for and to the LGBTQ community. And those of you who are also unaware, Harvey Milk, so that was in 1978, June of 1978, when the rainbow flag was officially revealed. And just a few months later in November, that is when Harvey Milk was assassinated by Dan White, who was also a former supervisor. And Harvey Milk, he shared a quote about a year before when he was expressing his concern about possibly being assassinated. He stated, "If a bullet should enter my brain, let that bullet destroy every closet door." I love his bravery is just absolutely amazing. So now I'll get into the 1970s. So for the 1970s, we're going to look at the declassification of homosexuality as a mental illness. So the American Psychiatric Association, the APA, which classified homosexuality as a mental and behavioral illness, forbid gay people to be psychiatrists. Yet there were many gay psychiatrists within this association. And they even started an informal group named the Gay PA. So all of them had shared that they believed what they were taught, that homosexuality was a pathology. And John Fryer, who is a very famous American psychiatrist, I believe he still lives today in Philadelphia, he stated, "Our internalized homophobia gave acceptance that it was a disease." So this same man in 1972, with some encouragement from gay rights activist Barbara Gidding, disguised himself in a wig, a mask, and an oversized suit, and used a voice modulator to deliver a speech during the 1972 APA conference. This is a picture of him here on the right, and he was wearing this disguise because he was protecting his identity, because as I said, people who are gay were not allowed to be psychiatrists at that time. So he shared how the 81 words describing the diagnosis of homosexuality as a mental illness harmed himself and many like him. He received a standing ovation. So his testimony helped to motivate and move others toward the declassification of homosexuality as a mental illness, which occurred 1 year later in 1973. So to learn more about this incredible yet appalling part of American psychiatry, I really recommend that you listen to 81 Words. is a podcast episode of This American Life. So it's called 81 Words, and it's a part of This American Life. So, but what I want you to note in this moment is that the diagnosis, it wasn't declassified because the APA independently realized that they were wrong and apologized for their incredible harm that they caused people. This occurred because of the perseverance and the bravery of the gay rights activists and the community. So now moving into the 1980s, just about 10 years later, less than 10 years later, really, the AIDS epidemic struck. And New York City was considered the epicenter of this epidemic. For 6 years, the government did nothing to help find a cure. And at that time, the chance of death was 100%. Hysteria and misinformation caused blame and hatred toward the gay community. People were dying. Hospitals were refusing to care for gay men. Others were waiting 4 days to be seen. And those who did die in hospitals were taken out, many were taken out in black trash bags. So the true reason why medication and finally an effective treatment was ever developed was because of the gay rights activists and AIDS advocacy groups, especially ACT UP. Members of these groups and others nonstop advocated and fought for effective and safe treatment. Not talking about AZT, which was absolute poison, but really, and also conducting legitimate studies and the implementation of plans to fairly and safely administer medication. And in the meantime, ACT UP and other groups organized underground drug studies, accessed medications from other countries, and set up makeshift pharmacies. And it wasn't until 1995 that, and this is 15 years later, that the 3 medication combo was discovered, which has now saved over 6 million lives. So I also want to point out, though, that early AIDS campaigns and research efforts focused primarily on white gay men, leaving minority communities underserved. Even ACT UP was comprised primarily of white gay men. So initial AIDS reports lacked data on race, which obscured the impact of the epidemic on minority populations. So when we think about social determinants of health, like factors like poverty, lack of access to healthcare, systemic racism, contributions to high rates of HIV infection among people of color, as well as the war on drugs and mass incarceration. Many organizations serving minority communities faced funding challenges, limiting their ability to provide essential services. There's an incredible organization here in Brooklyn called Griot Circle. They were founded in 1996, but certainly the people within that group were helping individuals way before then. But they're an amazing nonprofit organization serving LGBTQ plus older adults of color. I highly recommend that you learn more about Griot Circle. But the experience of ongoing trauma for years continues for so many. Peter Stanley, who was an original member of ACT UP, who still lives today, he shared, "Just like any war, you wonder why you came home." So I also encourage you to watch How to Survive a Plague. It's an amazing documentary about the AIDS epidemic here in New York City. I say here in New York City because AFA, we're here in New York City. But I also wanted to show you a picture of the AIDS quilt. So it was officially revealed on October 11th of 1987 during the Second National March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights. It's considered the largest community arts project in history. The AIDS Memorial Quilt helps us to remember the unique lives and stories of those we've lost to HIV and AIDS. There are roughly 50,000 panels, and roughly because they continue to be added, dedicated to more than 110,000 individuals in this epic 54-ton tapestry. Just wanted to show that all to you. So now we'll move into the 1990s and touch on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So it wasn't until 1994 when gay men and lesbians could serve in the military by the policy Don't Ask, Don't Tell this only, sorry, but the policy Don't Ask, Don't Tell, it only forced gay service members into secrecy while doing really nothing to combat the prejudices against them. In 2011, Obama announced this repeal, ending 17 years of forced secrecy and silence. In 2015, the Pentagon added sexual orientation to the military equal opportunity policy for the first time, meaning that gay servicemen and women would be protected from discrimination. In 2016, the ban was lifted for transgender people to join the military for the very first time. Yet in 2018, Trump signed a memorandum banning transgender people from the military. Biden then repealed this in 2021. And as we know, this year, May 8th, Trump again banned transgender people from joining the military. I want to share a quote with you by Army Major, excuse me, Kara Corcoran, who is a transgender infantry officer and Afghanistan veteran with 17 years of military service, who now faces separation from the armed forces. She stated, "By implementing this guidance, you're making it worse than Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Because you're overtly hunting down and trying to identify transgender service members or anybody that exhibits symptoms of gender dysphoria. Transgender service members have served openly since 2016, while adverse impacts on readiness or unit cohesion, without adverse impacts on readiness or cohesion. Thousands of transgender troops are combat tested, having deployed to war zones and executed missions with distinction." And partly what she's talking about there is that soldiers are now expected to identify their fellow service members who are suspected of gender dysphoria, I should say, because being a transgender person, it's not gender dysphoria. And then I finally want to share with you the legalization of marriage and just like what that has looked like over the years. So when we look at the right to marry, this has been banned and legalized and banned many times for the LGBTQ community. In September 1996, DOMA, which is the Defense of Marriage Act signed into law by Clinton, banned federal recognition of same-sex marriage by limiting the definition of marriage to the union of one man and one woman, and it further allowed states to refuse to recognize same-sex marriages granted under the laws of other states. And what, meaning by that is that if somebody if like a same-sex couple were married in one state and they moved to a state where it's not legal, that state does not need to recognize their marriage as legal. So from February 12th to March 11th in 2004, over 4,000 same-sex couples got their marriage license in San Francisco, only to have the California Supreme Court later nullify all 4,000 marriage licenses. And I believe at that time, from February 12th to March 11th, when over 4,000 people got their marriage license, that was, I believe that is called the Winter of Love, which I just absolutely love. But so in 2015, Obergefell versus Hodges, this was the landmark civil rights case in which the Supreme Court of the U.S. ruled that the rule to marry is guaranteed to same-sex couples by the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause stated in the 14th Amendment. So James Obergefell, who was the plaintiff on the case, the whole reason why this case came along was because he wanted to put his name on his husband's death certificate as a surviving spouse. So when the ruling was granted, he stated, "Today's ruling from the Supreme Court affirms what millions across the country already know to be true in our hearts, that our love is equal." So then on December 13th of 2022, President Biden, he signed into law the Respect for Marriage Act, which requires the US federal government and all US states and territories to recognize the validity of same-sex marriage and interracial civil marriages in the United States and protections in the US, and protects religious liberty. But there are still limitations to this as well. So the act, it does not stop states from passing discriminatory marriage restrictions or enforcing pre-existing measures. It gives exemptions to religious nonprofits. And this includes faith-based institutions, mission organizations, religious education institutions, and others to not celebrate or recognize marriage that conflicts with their faith. And then, of course, there is the question about whether or not the Supreme Court will revisit Obergefell. Now, I wanted to show you a picture, because I know that in this moment, there's a lot of, I guess, like political undertones to what it is I'm talking about. But I kind of want to move from the political undertones to really remembering that we're talking about human beings. We're talking about human beings, and we're talking about the love between human beings. So I wanted to show you all a photograph of Tanya McCloskey and Marcia Kadish. They were married on May 17th, 2004, when Massachusetts legalized same-sex marriage. And I just love their story, because they were talking about how they arrived early, not because they wanted to be the first same-sex couple to get legally married, but then this is what they state: because we wanted to go to everybody else's wedding. We wanted to participate all day long in weddings. And I just absolutely love that. So, so this is the end of the historical events that have occurred. I have also shared with you, there's a light that just turned off. I'm going to turn it on. And there it goes. I'm in a room where there's an automatic light. But so I just also wanted to add this slide for you all, so you can see some really important historical figures. And this is just to name a few. There are so many more. But I mean, we don't have time today to go through all of these individuals and what their stories are. But yet again, I just want to inspire everyone today to do your own research, to do your own readings about these historical moments, about these historical figures who are a part of the LGBTQ community and really have helped to shape history of the United States, of America. But before I get to the Q&A part, I just want to get back to that question, right? So why is the LGBTQ older population unique? And I hope that I've helped to answer that question. So there's a lifetime of discrimination, a lack of legal protections and social recognition, a lack of inclusive and competent healthcare. And then all of this results in a deep mistrust of traditional institutions. And that's why next month, October 9th, we'll be talking about what all of this means for LGBTQ older adults in healthcare, in dementia care, and what we can all do to be able to create a more inclusive environment, a safe environment for individuals, so they believe, because that's the thing, is that if you've experienced discrimination, stigma in healthcare, that is going to be a barrier to healthcare. So what is it that we can do to be able to eliminate those barriers? But before I get to the Q&A part, and if anybody would like to share their own stories, their own experiences, I want to share this quote with you all from Dan Savage, who's the author and who's an author and also an LGBTQ plus activist. So he states, during the darkest days of the AIDS crisis, we buried our friends in the morning, we protested in the afternoon, and we danced all night. The dance kept us in the fight because it was the dance we were fighting for. It didn't look like we were going to win then, and we did. It doesn't feel like we're going to win now, but we could. Keep fighting, keep dancing. I just love that so much. We do. We need to keep fighting and keep dancing. I think for everyone's rights. But okay, so I know that it's a little bit early. So we'll see if there are any questions, any comments, and we'll end the session whenever we come to that ending, whether it's at 1 o'clock or whether Eastern time or before.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was tremendous. I feel sure we'll have some questions. Would anyone like to place a question for Jennifer in the Q&A? We'd be happy to consider it. Or if they just have a comment, we would be happy to share that or just take that in for our sake. That would be very thoughtful of you. And we will be sure to answer it. If it's a question you would like to pose privately, I will be sure to include the contact information on our website for future help and resources. So we're getting a lot of nice comments. Thank you very much. And yes, just to let everyone know, once again, the presentation will be sent to you once part 2 has finished. And also the link to the recording. So if you wanted to review either of the webinars, we will send those links to you as well. So just to reassure you on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a comment that just came in.
I can read it? Would you like me to read it?
Sure, you go right ahead.
Okay. I see Edith says, more of a comment, but would like your thoughts. Recently retired from a social services agency where I instituted comprehensive LGBTQIA inclusion, quite successful. Now the education has publicly stated, or now the ED has publicly stated, she does not acknowledge gay marriage. I'm so sorry. So you're saying that the social services agency does not accept gay marriage. I just want to be sure I understood that part. Let's see. More of a comment, but would like your thoughts. Recently retired from a social service agency where I instituted comprehensive inclusion, quite successful. Ellie has publicly stated they do not. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I know. And that's the thing is that's why sorry, I understand that now. Right. And that's what I would say that we are certainly faced with at this time as educators, as individuals, people, is when there is no acknowledgement of, and this is where I think many people, especially, I'll say especially older adults, LGBTQ older adults, because they've been here before, where feeling like their whole identity is being erased. No one's identity is ever being erased, even if I would say the United States government feels that they can do that. They certainly cannot because we're human beings. But it's I think that what we can always do is within organizations, really seeing how we can support the people within our organizations. I know that here at AFA, we feel very supported, and I feel so honored to be able to share this type of education for you all and show our support to LGBTQ plus older adults, because we always need to be looking towards communities that really need our services and need our resources. So we're always trying to figure out ways to show the community that we care, that we are here as a support.
Thank you. We have a very important question. For people who come out later in life, do some people who are diagnosed with dementia forget that they've come out and regress back into the closet? How do we support them?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a speaker on, Ames Simmons, who's a professor and has a legal background, who did an amazing webinar. And we can actually send a link to the recording for you all. But you know, his presentation had so much to do with advanced directives and supporting LGBTQ plus older adults, and specific to your question there, right? So about like, what can we do to support a person who we may know is LGBTQ, but may appear to be reverting back, as you said, to their safe space, which they feel is their safe space. So I think the best thing we can do is to show those individuals that we are a safe space, that we are safe for them, and help them understand and know that they can be who they are. They can be their true, authentic selves. Because what would that be like, right? You've spent most of your life hiding your true identity because of fear, because of safety. And you finally come out feeling that you can be who you are. And then you have to go to an assisted living or a care setting where you feel that you have to hide your true, authentic selves again. That would be absolutely devastating. We're going to be talking about that next month too. So I highly recommend that you attend next month, because we'll be talking about a lot of that. But I think the best thing we can do is show our support and show that we are safe, that we are a safe space.
Thank you. Also, several people are asking about how to go about finding long-term care facilities, residences for the LGBTQ plus community. And I know you are going to address that in part two. Did you want to just speak to that generally for a minute?
Yeah, so there are different handbooks out there. Like there's like AARP, I think has some resources. Sage is an incredible organization that you can go and you can find different care settings within their directory. There are, it used to be called the GLMA directory. I think it has a different name now, so I'll look into that. But it's another directory where you can go that are specific for LGBTQ plus people. So you can go look in that directory and see where there are care settings within that directory.
Okay, very good. And we'll address that further also in part two.
Yeah.
One of the comments is many of the federal health and reimbursement forms now do not allow the use of sexual orientation and transgender information to be collected.
Yeah.
And LGBTQ research projects have been stopped, and professional journalists are making it difficult to get this research published.
Yeah.
It's not so much a question as it is a comment on our times, but maybe you just want to speak to that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing we can do, because no, absolutely. I mean, there are so many government websites where the LGBTQ is just gone. And so I think the best thing that you can do is call your congressman and share what you believe it needs to be addressed, and what needs to be, you know, what it is that you're fighting for. And because and that's another, I can provide you with another resource as well. I think Sage provides this, where you just need to type in your zip code and it'll give the who your congressman is or congressperson is, as well as their contact information, so that you can reach out and share, you know, what it is that you're attesting to.
Okay, thank you. And just to add to that, AARP also has a community-specific guide to caring
Yeah.
that is free of cost to anyone. I believe it's only downloadable as a PDF at this point. I'm not sure they're printing it, but you can ask them. Jennifer, I just want to call your attention to one of the last comments that came in. I'm a professional in the world of dementia. I don't know if you'd like to read that out yourself.
Let's see. I'm a professional in the world of dementia. Coming out is a natural state of being. I believe we'll see more of those who have not come out do so once the form of dementia they have developed causes cognitive changes. The coming out is a recognition of reality. Absolutely. I truly do believe that as well. And we do see that that does happen. I've certainly heard many people talk about working in care settings where, somebody may not realize that they have a wife or a husband and connect with somebody of the same sex, of the same gender, and start a relationship of sorts in that care setting, because right, it's almost like the fear the fear has been lifted, or the ego is lifting, so a person is able to be their authentic selves. But I think part of that is the care setting being feeling like a safe space where they can show that.
Right. And another person is writing for a little more education on, could you say a bit more about the Q in LGBTQ and what questioning means? That you had kind of referred to questioning, or we can send that to the person if
Oh,
you.
sure. Yeah. So I mean, it's typically referred to as queer, but sometimes people do use the Q as questioning, meaning that a person is in a place of questioning their sexual identity. So, many people will come to a place of questioning their sexual identity in their 40s, their 50s, maybe people who have been in a relationship, like a heterosexual relationship most of their lives. And then when they're older, they start to see other realities of life. And so that's where that questioning comes in. So somebody who may not necessarily say, I am gay or I am queer, but maybe more feels comfortable in that questioning state.
Thank you. Another lovely comment, it might be best if you read it out because it's very poignant. Starting to readdress the initial question. Can you see that one easily?
To readdress the initial question that was broached, I believe it is important to understand a person's multifaceted identities because no one lives in a vacuum. I believe it's important to understand the bedrock of discrimination of all identities because then it creates a path forward to overcoming it. As much as the current political zeitgeist is taking a more sinister tone in terms of LGBTQ plus rights, it's still valuable, especially in service provider roles, to provide understanding and provide solutions to care, which help us offer a greater quality of life. I am proud of my colleague in guardianship here at ARC to support one of our openly gay male primary case by taking him to Rockland County Pride annually, despite the DSP staff in his residence express inappropriately outward homophobia toward what he chooses to decorate his room with. Thank you for presenting this topic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And right, absolutely. Any way that you can show support to an individual, to the community, I think is only going to help to lessen the ignorance that causes that fear that is masked by anger.
Thank you. I think we've covered just about everybody here, so we'll come to the end of our webinar for today. And we thank you, Jennifer, again for your time and for this reflective talk on the history of the LGBTQ plus community and the importance of honoring and remembering the community's history. Sorry, a comment?
Oh, it's okay. I just wanted to share this last one here.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because I think it's a good one. So she says, Bree says, I'm a social worker in the caregiving, aging, and dementia space. I am also a daughter of 2 gay dads. It has been beautiful to see the social changes that have occurred over the last 40 years as it pertains to the LGBTQIA plus community. One thing that has been incredible to see is my 78-year-old dad interacting with a 23-year-old trans friend that he randomly met at a coffee shop. He never understood those types, but now is opening himself up to a whole new world. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you for catching that and reading that out. So we again, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to everyone who supported us by attending this Care Connection webinar and for your thoughtful questions and comments. Before we end, I want to encourage you to sign up for our next Care Connection webinar, which will be part 2 of our series honoring LGBTQ plus History Month. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, on Thursday, October 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, she will address healing with pride, designing care that sees, affirms, and restores and builds on the foundation by exploring how inclusive, culturally relevant, and trauma-informed healthcare, especially in dementia care, can foster trust, dignity, and safety. Together, we hope that these sessions illuminate the impact of the past while equipping participants with practical tools to create a more affirming future for LGBTQ plus elders. We hope you will be able to join us. Take care, everyone, again, until next time, and thank you again, Jennifer.
Thank you all so much.